Welcome to the Unpacking Life podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about the hard questions that you think about in your head, but you never say out loud. The type of questions that you keep to yourself, you might Google, but you actually keep them secret. So on today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about a deep topic. So how has lockdown affected people differently? And on today's show, we've got Wesley Thomas, who we've had on before. So welcome, Wes.
Yeah. No, so mate, how you doing?
I'm good. How you been?
All right, mate. Just getting busy, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of trying to use the time to kind of just do other things, really.
Yeah.
On top of family and work and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it shows how lockdown's affected us because this is the first time we've done a Zoom.
I'm doing them all the time. I'm kind of fed up of them, but yeah, I thought I'd join you anyway.
Yeah. No, I know that feeling, man. But I mean, lockdown's a sensitive topic, isn't it? Because I mean, there's so many beliefs around lockdown and so many different people that are affected differently. I mean, there's so many factors you got to think about. You got to think about, some people are actually like flourishing during lockdown, and some people are actually struggling. Like there's two different sides of the spectrum, isn't there? Like it's not one shoe fits all, and it depends on your social status, it depends on your income, depends on what you do for a job, depends on like, are you a family person, are you on your own? Like there's so many different factors that play into it. But today we're just going to discuss like the wide variety of what we've come across, and also people that we're in contact with and things that we've heard, like, because there's a lot of different stories on like, how different lives have been impacted.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, what you've heard and what you've seen and what you felt yourself, like, how is lockdown affecting people? What are the main factors that you're finding?
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation with someone this morning about this, and was talking about, the time that you spend with your kids and that they're at school, and it's been good in that sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've loved that, you know what I mean? Because since the first lockdown, I've spent a lot of time with the kids.
Yeah.
But obviously, the flip side to that is obviously the swings and roundabouts is you're in each other's pockets, so you're always in the hot pocket. When you're arguing and disagreeing and certain things, there's no escapism from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's personally, I've experienced both of those. The time spent with kids is good.
Yeah.
But then obviously being around people so much is not so good for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I need that little bit of independent time away from everybody on my own, and it really.
Of course.
So obviously being in the house 24/7, 7 days a week, it's not been easy.
Yeah.
From a career perspective as well. Again, I'm quite outgoing, quite social.
Yeah. And
what the lockdown has not enabled me to do is obviously be more social with people. So I've been literally in the house looking at the same four walls.
Yeah.
On a laptop day in, day out again, which has affected me. To the point where I've changed my career because of it. I've had to go back to being out and about, and just having that little bit of flexibility and freedom to get around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So literally, work's giving you that freedom. Like,
literally.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad how the game's changed so much, man. And so socially, I mean, like he says, like you like that away time, don't you, where you can like, come to yourself and be alone. Would you say you're introverted or extroverted, or would you say you're ambiverted, like a little bit in between? Or
it's mad because I'm both. Both, yeah. So I can be social, but there's times even I have to be on my own, and sometimes, and that just allows me to kind of just gather my thoughts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What's happened over the last week, or things that I'm going through at the time. That alone time kind of just allows me to kind of just analyze certain things.
Yeah, and reflect.
Yeah. So it's a bit weird because I'm both, and you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
even when people come to the house, sometimes I'm not. If I'm not feeling it, I kind of just have to take myself away from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Well,
Yeah,
whereas
I'm
Anya's
exactly
not
the
like
same.
that. She's social 24/7. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anya's very extroverted, isn't she?
Yeah, she can be.
Stacey's the same. Like my wife's the same. Like she's extroverted. I'm more in between. I used to think I was more introverted. And I probably am. I probably have more tendencies that are introverted, but at the same time, I can be very sociable when I want to be. And if it's about something that I'm interested in. But one of the things that I can't stand is small talk. So that's probably why I'd say I'm not. And I like that alone time. But normally I get that, when Stacey and Nina's gone to bed, Like I've got my alone time, then that's when I'll spend my alone time, kind of thing. But yeah, I fully hear what you're saying about lockdown and how it's, it's had an impact on so many different areas in life, and some of them you take for granted until lockdown happens, isn't it?
It's a mad one, really, because it depends on if your partner's one that's working all the time and your kids go to school and you're at work, then it's a little bit different. But if your partner's fully in the house a lot of the time, then it can become, especially for me, it's become a bit difficult in that sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're just constantly around each other, and there's no, even that little point of missing each other. You know what I mean? I go to work and I walk through the door, Zion's running up to me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I see my kids and I miss, you know what I mean? But I don't get that same feeling at the minute. So it's mad.
And there's so many things that, I mean, impact people. I mean, I've wrote a small list just so that I remember. But mental health is a big focus. Like social isolation, that's a massive thing. Like different people are affected differently by that. Financial worries, because obviously there's uncertainty in the market, job losses, all that kind of stuff. House insecurities, like depending on if someone rents or if someone's buying or they're on social housing, like it's affecting people differently across the board. And then also, I think the biggest one that I've come across is the loss of coping mechanisms. I think a lot of people, obviously everyone's got issues. Everyone, me, you, everybody's got our own personal issues through life. But I think a lot of people, they deal with their issues through life, through social settings and distractions. And I think lockdown is kind of like, it's putting everyone in a box, and it's like, all right, and sit there with your issues and the TV. Like it literally is that, isn't it? And it's like, it's just letting people fester on these feelings and emotions that they're feeling, because when you're with someone 24/7 and you know what they've been doing, there's only so much you can talk about. And then when you're lost for things to talk about, it's like there's a comfortable silence with your partner, but then there's too much silence. Do you get me? Like, and it's hard to have something stimulating to talk about if you both know exactly what you've been doing. But
I feel that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true. And I've been having this conversation with Vanya, because you could talk a lot with your partner, but sometimes, while in my situation, I feel like there's a lack of substance talk. So you could talk about
depth,
what you have, what you're gonna have for dinner, what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? But for me, it's a primer. And I was saying again, I had this conversation this morning, and for me, lockdown it's been a blessing in disguise, because I'm not a kind of person that kind of runs from issues. If I know it, I'll try and deal with it. Then that's the kind of person that I am in it. So in a sense, lockdown's been good in the sense of it's told me that there's things to work on. So, and it's then having that ability to communicate that with your partner or whoever it is that you want to communicate that with. So it's been a blessing in that sense. But for certain, there's a lot of people that I know that are living with their partner and they're coming to blows because they don't really know each other. So it's almost like strangerism, you know what I mean?
That's it. It is. I mean, the amount of people I know that split up over lockdown. It's mad. Like, and it is because literally, like, a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people are together because of the social aspects of a relationship. So they're used to going out, they're used to, like, going for meals, doing social activities, rather than sitting down and actually talking. And on the last episode, we actually, with Olivia Towers, we actually talked about, intimacy and what is intimacy and like how people are scared of it. And one of the comments that she made, which I kind of know most people do it anyway, but one of the comments she made is, in a relationship, people run to sex and they hide from intimacy. And sex is less fearful than in true intimacy, where you open up and talk about how you feel, how you view the world, like all these types of things. It's more intimidating to most people because they've never known it, and it leaves you vulnerable. And I think with lockdown, it's kind of like it brings intimacy. You have to be intimate with that other person that you're living with. Like, it doesn't matter if you've been together for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, you're going to have to talk about some issues or whatever it is that you've got. Or sometimes people are in a relationship and they've got an issue with somebody that they've held on for 10 years and they've never talked about it.
Honestly, I don't understand that,
Yeah. It is confusing how people got on like that. Carry on.
No, carry on. I don't understand it. It's like, I feel like in any relationship, you have to be like very two open people. Otherwise, in some way, shape or form, the relationship's going to expose you. So holding on to issues and things that annoy you, for example, just is a little bit alien for me. and because I'm a little bit outspoken to a certain degree, where I have to kind of voice my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't understand people that kind of hold on to their opinion.
Yeah.
Not so much. Don't get me wrong,
I think that's the best way. I think it's the best way to voice it, because if you don't voice it, you're going to hold on to it. It's going to fester, and then it gets worse. And then when you do try and address it, it's going to be worse because it's built up. Do you get me? Rather than dealing with it as it comes and as it arises.
And there's another step to that is obviously the awareness of having a conversation, but I think there's the action that follows on from those conversations, which I think a lot of people kind of don't know where to turn to with that, if that makes sense.
Exactly. What's the solution? So you talk about the problem, and then often there's no solution talked about. Like, all right, so this is the problem that I've got, and this is how I think we can deal with it. Like, that should be how it should be addressed. But often it's just, this is the problem, and often people are pointing their finger rather than looking inward.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think with lockdown, when people have their arguments and they go in their separate rooms, because this is a lot, because the amount of inboxes I get, bro, like, it's mad. Like, the amount of people that tell me, like, I'm not a marriage counsellor or nothing like that. I don't even put myself out there like that. But for some reason, I seem to be getting a lot of relationship type of topics in my inbox, like where people are coming, like, you know, for advice on different topics. And don't get me wrong, I know a bit about a bit, but I'm not no expert, and everyone's relationship's different. Like, so I don't know what works for you. Like, I'm just saying what works for me. Do you get me? Like, and I think everyone's different in that sense. But is that little man?
Yeah, sorry.
That's cool. This is lockdown life. This is real. Wesley's like, yeah, let me just hold him off with the foot.
Sorry, mate.
Nah, it's cool. It's cool.
This is what I'm fighting with every single day.
No, it's cool.
Oh, mate. Oh, it's like,
That's cool, man. That's cool.
That's probably fitting as we're talking about lockdown.
Yeah, it's perfect, bro. I'm leaving this in. Like, this is staying in. We don't edit out stuff around here. Nah, but that's the reality, isn't it? Like, literally, it's juggling everything at the same time. And it's keeping that mental focus as well, isn't it?
Well, if you like, I like excitement to a certain degree. So, but not excitement, variety.
Yeah.
And obviously, not being able to go for dinners or the theatre or doing these other things, it can kind of take the spice off your relationship, if that makes sense. Unless you're innovative to do little things other than social stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So in sense of, like, all right, let's keep it on the topic of couples. In sense of the topic of couples, what would you say, like, what are some of the key problems that can arise from lockdown, and what are the best ways to deal with them, would you say?
I think just talking, mate, communication, because as we explained, that there are people in relationships, and I'm in one that, I'm probably overly expressive in terms of my opinion, and my partner's not so. She kind of holds on to things.
Yeah.
So it's being able to then talk those things through, to a solution. Because if none of these are willing to come to that compromise, because there's always going to be something. If you're not willing to come to the compromise or know how to, then that can cause conflict.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
True.
And that for me kind of umbrellas everything.
Yeah.
Because if you can't talk,
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing you can resolve.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
There's two, but there's 2 points to that. There's the communication and making of things aware to your partner, and then there's the action from it. Otherwise, what you'll do is, if you can communicate one and you can't do the action side, you're just going to go around in circles. Yeah. With the same issue.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And that's a major key, isn't it? And I mean, when you're talking about these issues as well, another factor is, like, none of you have got anywhere to run. Like, you can't just, like, you ain't got to go to work. You can't dead the conversation and say, right, we'll talk about this later because I've got to go out. Like, that isn't happening. Like, it's literally, you've got to deal with it then and there. And I mean, I don't know about you, but certain issues, like when I talk to Stacey about certain issues, they are heated issues. If it's a deep one, not the average day issue, but if it's a deep one, it will be a heated issue. And it might be a situation where, like, you just need that time apart from each other. She might go to a room that she chooses and spend an hour there to cool down. And she might not even talk to me. She might not even want to talk to me at that point in time. But I'm the type, like, like, I'll make a joke out of it and like come in and say, like, you stop sulking now, or you stop pushing up your face now, you're going to smile now. Like, or I'll walk in and say, what, do you want a divorce? Like, and I'll just bust a joke, like, because I'm that type. Like, do you get me? Like, and then normally that simmers things down, and we can talk rationally again. And after we've both sat down and had some time to think about it, like, you can come to a conclusion. And I'm always solution focused, always trying to think. All right, and we know what the problem is. How are we going to deal with this going forward? Because we are going forward, so we need to come up with a solution. Do you get me? And then I'll just leave that on the table. Then whatever the solution is, we work it out together. And often that's how it goes. But one of the things with lockdown is, like, you know, I mean, before lockdown, it was like you can have an issue with something and be busy with work or go out to work, come back and feel a total different way because you had other things on your mind. But when you're in lockdown, it's like you've constantly got a certain way of thinking on your mind. It's like with Stacey, like Stacey's very different to me. Like, I can switch my attitude real quick. Like, I can switch it on and off, like, real quick. Whereas with Stacey, if we have an argument, she won't be fully, like, okay with me until she goes to sleep and wakes up the next day.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I can have an argument, be like hot as heck. I can be like hot tempered.
Yeah.
Say what I need to say, and then I'm cool down.
Yeah.
Whereas I've left that anger with Anya, and she's like that for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, man. And
yeah. That's what I mean. It's hard, isn't it?
It's difficult.
It is.
But do you think that, like, smaller issues are then made into a bigger thing because of lockdown?
Yeah, I think you can nitpick. Irritation sets in. You have to manage your irritation because, I mean, you know, simple things like after you've been locked down for a couple of days, the way someone chews. Simple things like that. I'm just being real, bro. Like, simple things. If you're irritated and you're in an irritable mood, you've been in all day, you haven't done nothing apart from work, and, like, you know, someone's chewing right next to your ear hole, like, it's going to irritate you. Like, mine's mainly like Nye will irritate me. Like, Nye knows how to press my buttons, but she thinks it's a game. She does, and she'll do little, because she's got banter and that now. She's coming into her own little character, and, you know, she'll try and banter with me, but sometimes you don't want banter. Like, sometimes you just want, like, to chill. You just want to relax and just sit back, and you want a bit of escapism, because I don't have much escapism. So sometimes when I want to escape, I want my escape time. Do you get me? Like, I just want that. I want to just zone out for a bit and just think about nothing, because I'm always ticking. It's like you appreciate those zone out moments, whereas in lockdown, you don't really get them until everyone goes to bed. That's when I'll get them normally. Yeah. But then that results in bad habits, because what I'm doing is I'm going to bed late. Like, I'm talking like 1, 2 o'clock. Like, normally, sometimes when I Zoom to the States and I've got clients and everything like that, like, I don't mind Zooming, but then I'm straight back to sleep. But this is like on a regular, like, this is on a weekday. Like, on a weekday, I'm stepping up to like 1 o'clock, and then I'll get up about, you know, 9:30, 10, which is late, like, really. And then my habits is I like to get up and train, and then I go about my business. Whereas now, because I'm training later, I'm going about my business later, which is having a knock-on effect. So I'm working later, if that makes sense. So that for me is really something I've had to keep on check. I've had to keep it on check, like, this week, really, being real. Like, I've just had to make sure, you know, I'm getting my sleep. I'm keeping consistent with my habits, and I'm not eating late, because that's another thing. Eating late, those cheesecakes, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This lockdown isn't as severe as the first one, because the first one was a bit more of a cold shock to the system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in that first lockdown, I ended up becoming ill, and obviously, you know, I went to hospital. I was in hospital for a bit, and the simple fact of it is, I was going to sleep late, eating late, Xbox late, and waking up late, not feeling to do anything. You know what I mean? And it just led on until I just got sick. I was demotivated to do any work, so I was still working at the same time. You know what I mean? So, you know, often when you see somebody that's demotivated, it's not, they just haven't got an idea. Normally they've got some kind of stress or something behind that as to why they're demotivated. Or not all the time, but majority of the time, you know. There's other issues playing along with that demotivation, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And it's mad that you say that the first lockdown was worse than the second, because I think the first lockdown for me was easy. like because it was sunny outside and you can go outside. It's nice day, it's nice weather. Like whereas now it's cold. I don't want to go outside. Do you get me? I don't want to go on my daily walk. Do you get me? Because it's cold.
You think I think it was a shock to everyone's system though, you know, because I like to walk anyway, so this kind of weather is perfect for me. We'll go down the woods or something. I like that kind of stuff, innit?
Really?
But yeah, I do. Yeah, I love that, and the kids love it as well. Well,
yeah.
But that's another thing because I'm used to doing the walks and Zion is as well. Because we've been in the house so long, even now he doesn't want to leave the house.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I'm seeing a knock-on effect for him as well. But the first lockdown, it was just working from home 24/7. I'm not used to. I'm always like meeting clients and speaking, and you know what I mean, and giving them a physical handshake rather than over the Zoom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that just affected me massively. That did. You know what I mean? So and it almost felt like every day was just the same. You know what I mean? And yeah, it just wasn't good for me at that point, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. See, for me, like, because obviously, like, I work from home anyway all the time. It's like that work-wise, it wasn't a dramatic change. Obviously, going out and filming and meeting clients, and that has changed to a degree. I'm still going out actively filming and stuff. It's just not as often. I'm doing more other side of stuff. I've had to pivot the business slightly, but we're still active and we're still busier than ever, really. But as in like interacting with people face to face, that's changed a lot. Like, and I didn't realize how much I missed it until it's taken away. Do you get me? Like I'm someone that's like, you know, I don't like to have meetings about meetings and not get anywhere. I'm like, we're having one meeting and we're going to talk about this and that and we're going to get it done. Straight away after that, there's going to be actions done and then that's it. I don't want to have a meeting about the meeting that we had last time, which most people do just because they like the social side of chatting and chit chat. Whereas because it's my business, it's like I want results. I ain't got time to be like sitting down and socializing. I just want results. Do you get me? Well, don't get me wrong. There's a time to socialize, but there's a time to put the work in. And now it's kind of like I wouldn't mind if someone says let's have a meeting about a meeting. Do you get me? Just for the fact of the social side. Do you get me? It's an excuse to get out of the house, isn't it? It's the legal way to get out of the house.
Oh man, it's the experience, isn't it? You know, because I used to go meet clients across the country, so I'd go down there wherever it was, meet them, and then I'll be in an area where I want to go and I've got my laptop, so I'll go into a coffee shop and I'll spend an hour or two in the coffee shop and do some work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of zooming all the way back home and sitting in my office, so it's the whole experience that I miss.
Yeah. That makes sense. So, touching on some of the topics then. So, when you say, you know, unhealthy things that people are doing, there's a lot there. Like, I mean, even with like, you know, the topic this week is school meals for children. Like that's a hot topic right now because, you know, like the school meals that are given to children, the packages that are actually given to children isn't nowhere near what they're funded to deliver. And they're not giving packages. They're not realistic. You know, they don't know the price of bread. Like these people that are giving these packages, the decision makers, they don't know the price of things. So they're giving things that aren't realistic to a family. So obviously children are being impacted from a physical standpoint of food. But there is also the mental standpoint as well, which I think is often overlooked. Because children, I mean, they listen to what grown-ups say. They listen to the news. They go to school sometimes. They're not in school right now, but when there was, there's all this talk about COVID, but they don't really understand scientifically what is a virus and how does it work. They understand little elements and drip drops you give them, but they don't really understand, like, how comes we can go out and then all of a sudden we're told we have to come back in and then we're told we can go back out again? Do you get me? Like, it doesn't make no sense. Like, to them, it's invisible because they can't see it. So then you've got to worry about, all right, and how is that having a social impact on their socializing skills? Because as they're going through this age, this is almost a year now coming up to March that we've been in these types of conditions. So how has that stunted development, especially if it's only child? I mean, my daughter's an only child, so she hasn't really got people to socialize with her age. She's socializing with adults all the time. That's why she's a bit more forward, I would say, because she's used to having adult conversations where sometimes they just need kid conversations. They just need to talk about nothing and just play. Like, do you get me? And I think she misses that. She does FaceTime and all that kind of stuff. But how do you think, you know, like on a wider scope, communities, how do you think this is impacting families, children, yes, specifically differently? like, with the lockdown conditions?
I think you've touched on it, social skills. You know what I mean? Because, for example, my daughter who lives with her mum, she hasn't got a big family up where her mum lives.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, she's in the house on the iPad where her mum's going to work. And obviously that's no fault of her mum. Just support working. But on the back of that, I'm thinking, well, how is that healthy? How does that make her, physically and mentally, she's not speaking to anybody. She's not going out all the time and they're just really just being a child, really, if that makes sense. So I worry about the social, as I said about my son, he doesn't want to go anywhere now. I say to him, so let's go for a walk now. I don't, and he's free, He'll say, no, I don't want to go for a walk. No, daddy, I don't want to stay in the house. And it's like, so I can see from that point of view, it's affecting people a lot, man. So, and even down to, and the other spectrum is my grandparents.
Yeah.
So they're sitting in the house, watching the TV, watching all these messages about this dangerous virus and stuff. They don't go anywhere. So obviously I'll visit them once or twice a week just to sit down and talk with them. But for them, like, I worry about them deteriorating to nothing because they're just full up of worry. They're old, so most of their friends are dead or gone. You know what I mean? They ain't speaking to people. Does that make sense?
That's a good point, because that's something we ain't touched on, how it's impacting the elderly. Because that is a big thing, man. Because I mean, it's something that I've seen with myself. I mean, like, I don't know if I've told you, my granddad Nev, like, he's I think he's 83. He's very much like, he's old Jamaican, so he's very like certain elements. He's anti-government. He doesn't trust government at all. But as soon as they released the vaccine, he was first in line, bruv. Like, so, and it didn't make no sense to me. Like, not just because, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-vaccine because I believe certain vaccines are there to help, and certain vaccines can actually help, and they've been proven to help scientifically. But I'm just weary of any vaccination that's like, it hasn't been clinically tested for over 2 years, so they don't know the long-term effects. But and because he's like, he's very anti-establishment in the first place. I was shocked he's willing to put his trust in that. And when I spoke to him about it, sat down and spoke to him about it, like, it's the first time I've actually seen him actually worry. Like, the first time ever, like, that he expressed, like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm high risk. So he has been listening to the news because he listens to the news a lot. And don't get me wrong, like, as black people, we're told, like, you're more likely to die if you get it. So if you're told that and you're not told the reason why, it's going to cause fear, especially if you're older.
Of course, man.
But then you've got to take into consideration, like, it's a big risk. It's a big, like, to trust someone, to put something in you that don't know how it's going to react. It's like a big risk. And I'm not even going to turn this into a vaccination talk. But like, for me, it's like the risk outweighs like the benefit for me personally. But I can understand if you're high risk. If you're high risk and it's like, you're going to get it eventually. It's just a matter of when. I mean, we've personally had it, so I know the effects of it, and it didn't really affect us. And that's just because we was very fortunate. But like, Stacey lost her taste and that was about it. And like, for me, I couldn't train for 3 days because I felt rough. But apart from that, I was good. But then again, you've got people like, our friend Danny, like, where he's got long COVID now and it's got long lasting effects on his lungs, and he can't, like, certain things he can't do, and he's as fit as what he used to, and like all that kind of stuff. So, and that's a young, fit guy. Like, so it isn't just the vulnerable. He's got no pre-existing conditions or anything like that, and it's just hit him bad. So it's a luck of the draw, really. And so you've got to take that into account. So I'm not saying it's a fake thing or nothing like that, because I do believe the virus is real. I just don't believe in all the solutions that they're offering is the first one that you should jump on straight away.
And my grandparents said they're having it today, actually, Thursday. And then my mum had it a couple of days as well. So,
your mum had it as well?
Yeah, because she works with elderly, so she kind of had to.
Yeah.
I mean, I read this morning that actually Midlands is the highest region to have the anti-vaccine. Amongst all the regions, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally, they're stuck in the house watching TV.
Yeah.
Like, and they're an elderly mentality where they're not going to change what they do. So they're just going to sit in front of the TV, watch the news, watch the chase, watch all these things. And and it's just all COVID, you know what I mean? So
that's the thing. So let's move on to some tips that we can give people then. And actually, before we do that, let me give a shout out to our sponsor, because I haven't actually mentioned these before, but these people, I've actually worked with these for like over 7 years now, and the sponsor is Agora Pulse. They're a social media management tool, and they basically help you to keep up to date with all the content that you're putting out and how people are reacting, how to manage your messages so that you never miss a message. They actually save you a lot of time. I own a digital marketing agency, so I manage a lot of accounts. So one of the problems that we often have is, keeping up to date with all the messages and everything that's coming in, not just the comments, but the inbox messages. Because sometimes, like as a lot of influencers would know, when you get a lot of messages that come in, some of them just disappear on Instagram, just randomly disappear. You don't see them until months later, and then you're like, "Wow, how did I miss that?" But with this tool, it actually enables you to not miss any message at all. And you can reply to them. Once you reply to them, they're ticked off as replied. It's literally like a customer service tool. But one of the other ways that I mainly use it is really about creating. When I create content and put it out, I can see how the audience has actually reacted to it based on their analytics, which is really good. Like it basically tells me like, at what point did they like the content, and tells me like, how did they engage with the content and all that type of stuff. So it enables me to know, what's working and what's not working. And what they've actually done is offered 1 month for free for anyone that goes to www.agorapulse.com/unpacking life, and you'll get a month for free. So you can test it out, trial it. It's great content. It's a great software to use because it's just, it just takes a lot of headache. And that's not even me selling. I've used them for 7 years, and they're just good people. And any problems that you've got or anything like that, they literally answer it then and there. So yeah, that was a shout out to our sponsors. So moving back into the podcast now.
So any social media managers out there that are looking for a management tool, that's the one to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's just have it. Moving on into the tip side of things.
Yeah. So moving on into the tip side of things, what would you say is? Would you give three to 5 tips on how to deal with lockdown well?
I'd say number 1, plan your time.
Yeah.
Literally, like plan your time. If you can be specific, be specific. But because for example, I've given myself a target of finishing 3 books in this first quarter, just about different topics, and it's good because I love to read, but I find it hard to read, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
To target myself to do that is good, and it's realistic. So program your time and just make sure that you're doing something productive at least once a day if you can.
Yeah.
And physical, I don't know about anybody else, but if I don't train or if I don't do something physical, like in the long run, it affects me. Like even the people around me, if I don't do something to get that energy out, then it's messed up. So it's important that I'll get up and I'll be doing. We've got a running machine downstairs, so we just do a little bit of running and push ups, and whatever, just a little circuit and whatnot. So, but I think it's important that if you're living with a partner, to keep each other accountable to do those kind of things.
Yeah,
what I mean? So make it easier for yourselves.
So healthy habits.
Just the healthy habits, and just saying, well, if one person's not doing it this morning or they don't feel motivated to, that the other person's going to pick them up and do it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So number 1, prioritize your time. Number 2, try and do some physical exercise. Number 3, spend time to talk with your partner if you've got somebody that you can speak with. Like last weekend, I thought I can't. As the social animal in me said, I can't just sit around and do nothing. So I went out and just visited people. Obviously, it's not against COVID. It's against COVID rules to a certain degree. But they ain't looking at my sanity or my mental health at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Or anybody else's. Yeah. So I just went around with my son, just went and visited people, and it was a nice little weekend of just visiting people and just seeing people. You know what I mean? And just having that conversation. It was good for them because they're not used to having people in the house. And it was good for me just to kind of just speak to different people, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
It's true. True. Yeah. So I'd say, I'll just add on that. I'd say like 100%, like, routine is massive. Routine is like, You've got to have a routine because no one is holding you accountable, and you're working from home, and you can, as long as you get your work done, that's all the company cares about, or all your business cares about, as long as you get the work done. But one of the things that I fell into is not having routine, and I noticed it's a gradual downfall, as in, like, you start eating late and bad habits start to creep in because of your routine and all that kind of stuff. So having a structured routine when you go to sleep at a certain time or wake up at a certain time, that really helps. Like he says,
how would you say about routine? Because for me, I can be kind of off the cuff. So when routine kicks in, I see it as mundane sometimes.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be to somebody who's not very good with routine?
Yeah. I'd say you don't have to have a strict routine, as in at 11 o'clock you're going to do X, Y, Z. But I think you should have a routine of, like, if you say at like 9:30 you're going to start work, you're going to work up until, like, say 11:30. Then you're going to have lunch until whenever lunch is done. And then you continue. But when you continue, you should say, like, well, it depends on what you do, really. But if you say that you end at 5, you end at 5. Don't let it run over. Because one of the things that I found I was doing, I was finishing my work on my main computer editing, but then I'll take my laptop downstairs, watch TV with the family, and I'm still doing bits and bobs. Do you get me? Like, and all that kind of stuff, which can interrupt, obviously, the family time and all that. And so now it's like, when the family's downstairs, I don't take my laptop downstairs. It's only when everyone's asleep, then I'll take my laptop downstairs, and I might put something on Netflix on the background, but I'm still doing my work. I'm still doing bits and bobs. That's just because that's just the way I am. Not everyone's like that. Some people just like to totally unwind. But I'd say that's a massive thing. And then also I'd say FaceTime, connect with people. Like FaceTime, and, like, there's apps out there like House Party, like, is a good app, like, where you can, like, link up with people and play games and all that kind of stuff. Just have a bit of banter, like, have a bit of normality, jokes, humor, all that kind of stuff. That's really useful in just, like, keeping your spirits up, keeping life in perspective. But another thing to keep life in perspective is limit the amount of news that you take in. Like, limiting the news is such a big one, because the amount of people, like, it's always the people that watch news 24/7, that when I speak to them, they're like doom and gloom, like, because it's contagious. Attitudes are contagious. And if all you're hearing is death counts have gone up, this has happened, like, there's more counts of people having COVID in this area, like, this is the worst we've ever had it, everything's negative. So when you're fueling yourself with negativity, it's like that compound effect. The book, when you're fueling yourself with negativity, you're going to be negative, and that's going to have effects on your physical well-being as well as your mental well-being, because your mental well-being has more pull on your physical than what most people actually think.
It's important, but I'd probably add to that and say limit the news, but I'd say feed your brain. And what I mean by that is by either reading a book, or because I made the decision a long time ago that I don't really watch TV unless I'm watching a film. I don't really watch TV, so that's all good for me. But I do think that you should be feeding your brain, because I feel like if you're not thinking about certain things, there's room for bad habits to creep in. Does that make sense?
That's true. And you can only get rid of a habit, really. I mean, I don't know if it's actually scientifically correct, but in my opinion, the best way to get rid of a bad habit is to replace it with a good one. Like,
and as well, to add to that, once you have one bad habit, there's room for it. Basically, it breeds another 10 bad habits, if that makes sense.
It's a knock-on effect.
There's the knock-on effect is contagious
to that bad habit.
Seriously.
There's symptoms and, like, side effects to that bad habit. Like, it's true. It's 100% true. Like, so I think those are good examples of like ways to keep sane. But in terms of, like, one thing that we haven't addressed is the finances. Finances is a big one, because obviously some people are a lot in lockdown and they're at home and they've lost their job and they can't get another job. They're applying for other jobs and they've lost their job, or they're at home but they're only on a percentage of their wage and it isn't enough to cover everything that they need. There's financial stresses and worries. There's uncertainty because people are getting laid off at work and you don't know if you're next. All that type of stuff comes into it. Some people, they might not even be working. They might be on job seekers allowance or something like that, and they're like applying for jobs and they're not getting nowhere. There's different problems, but also there's different solutions to these problems, obviously. But I would say 100% one of the main factors during lockdown is mind your own business, in the terms of like, look at something where you can set up a business or a brand or something, a side hustle, something that's like, obviously when I say side hustle, I mean something that's legal. but it's something that you can actually like, put your effort into while you're employed or while you have the time, and build a little income from, and build it and see where you go. Yeah, obviously it has to be something that you're passionate about and something that you're interested in and that you've got knowledge in. But there's so much out there right now in 2021 that you could be doing from home. It's ridiculous. Like, and this is why I say like lockdown it's kind of like, for me personally, it has been a blessing in certain ways, because it's allowed me some time to look back at the market and just look at everything, because I was so busy with like, work, and I'm in the routine. Like what I do for work as an agency is easy to me now. It's like second nature. But yeah, it's like, it's so easy. Like I can look at a problem and literally I can know the solution instantly. Like I don't even have to think about it anymore. When I first started, it was like you have to sit down and brainstorm, all that kind of stuff. But now it's just natural and quick. Whereas now I'm looking at, all right, and if the number one problem is like, say, retail stores shutting up, like I know that online consumerism has gone up dramatically since lockdown. Like people are spending as a form of escapism. Do you get me? More than ever, even though they haven't got the money, they're spending more than ever. Now, this leaves an opportunity to actually, you could set up an online store through Shopify and actually market it, and gives people something that will help them during lockdown or times like this, or something that they generally need. And you can make a business off that and kill it. There's a company called Lounge, and they're Solihull based, and they're doing very, very well. And it was actually set up before lockdown, but since lockdown, their sales have gone through the roof, and they've just set up a new headquarters next to Gymshark in Blythe Valley, and their turnovers like shot up this year alone, just because, and they openly say it's because of lockdown. And obviously they sell lounge wear. So obviously what you're doing in lockdown, there's no point in buying nice clothes, because you're in lockdown, you're not going nowhere to wear them. So everyone's buying lounge wear. Do you get me?
They must be winning, to be honest.
Yeah, they're killing it. They are. They're doing really well, and the owner's a real nice guy as well. And like I think he does it with his wife. And it's good. Like it's a real good like company. But it shows you at the same time there's opportunities out there if you just switch the way that you look at things.
It's mad, bro. Because me personally, this is why I said lockdown's good, because it's allowed me to kind of reevaluate where I am and where I want to be. Whereas if I was constantly in that distraction mode of just doing work and going out and you wouldn't really think about certain things. So recently I've talked to a lot of people about, I'm in this career and I don't want to do it anymore, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And I've literally looked at people's CVs and gone, okay, you've got loads of transferable skills and you'll be able to take this and transform it into this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But for me, obviously, that's because I've worked in social enterprise, and for me, that's what you can do. You can come from a really corporate background and still be able to fit in somewhere along the line in social enterprise.
Yeah.
So for me, that's quite easy to see, but not a lot of people understand it from that point of view. So what I'm saying is, I think that lockdown it's a blessing, and you've got to see it as a blessing. Otherwise, if you see it as a bad thing, you're never going to learn anything, if that makes sense. And you need to analyze your skills and your skill set and where you want to be and where your passion is, in order for you to kind of really trying to take advantage of this opportunity. Because we'll never have this again, or I don't think we'll come across lockdown after this passes. So really, it's a nice time to kind of sit down and reset, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It is. It's a reset of perspective, isn't it?
It's a reset, yeah.
And I think that's the important thing about it, and that's what can be taken from it. I mean, to me, I'll compare it to like, a biblical lesson, and this is what through research and looking into it, how I looked at it was, a biblical lesson is when Jesus went out into the desert for 30 days and 30 nights, regardless of what people believe or whatever, they say he was tempted by the devil, and he come at him from different perspectives. Tried to tempt him in 3 different ways. Now, out of that, he come out stronger, and he come out like with a clearer perspective. And then after that, that's when he started his teaching properly. At that age, I think it was 30. He actually started his teaching, and he was only preaching technically for 3 years, because he died at 33, they say. So only 3 years, he made such a massive impact on the world, regardless if people believe in God or not. If you only put in work for 3 years and you've had the impact that Christianity has had on the world today, like, you can't say that man is average. That is not no normal man that is capable of that. Like, if you could show me another man like Elon Musk and like Mark Zuckerberg and all them types of people, they took over 10 years to reach the level of fame and the level of like know-how that they've got. But none of them even touch on a slight level the level of what Jesus is. Do you get me? Like, but it shows you it can't be an average man. And I'm not trying to preach or nothing like that, but what I'm saying is that time alone in the desert that he had could be kind of compared to time alone in your house, although it's not as extreme. It like we've got it cushy, we've got luxuries, we've got all that, but yeah, we're acting like it's the worst case scenario because of the news. Like,
you know what it is though, bro. I believe that a lot of people don't like that time alone.
Yeah.
They're used to being around people that they don't, and that's alien. I don't understand that again, but I'm not trying to criticize anybody who's like that, but I think the time alone is vital for anything in terms of self-development and understanding yourself. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And there is a time, like it says, there is a time to be active and be social, but there's a time to come apart and come to yourself and actually reflect on, you know what, where am I? Where am I right now? Like, am I where I'm at? Am I hitting my goals? If you ain't got no goals, you got to look at right, and what's the end goal for you? Like, are you happy to just keep ticking over and doing your job and, you know, you're living for the weekend and now and then you go on a holiday or 2 holidays a year and you think that's living? Like, are you happy with that? Is that the example that you want to set? Do you get me? For your children? Like, you've got to question all these types of things, and there's no problem if you are, because like different things make different people happy. But what I'm saying is, this should be a wake-up call to everyone to make them realize the world doesn't operate the way that they think it operates, because things could happen all of a sudden. You need to be able to pivot, change, and adapt to the way that the world is. Like,
the angle.
yeah, literally. Like, it's like boxing, isn't it? Like, if it's not working in straight lines, you have to slip and then move in on a different angle. Like, it's exactly the same with this. And with job scarcity and like, you know, people losing jobs, this should make people realize more than ever that they need a side hustle or another alternative income, because you can't rely on one income. You need multiple sources of income.
Don't get me wrong, I do generally feel sorry for a lot of people, especially like people like foreigners.
Yeah.
So they've come into this country, they've had one job, it's been a secure job, and it pays them. They know the job, and then all of a sudden, boom, no job.
Yeah.
They've not even skilled themselves to do anything else because they've been so like so tunnel in this. You know what I mean? So to a certain degree, I understand the pain for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know that changing of angles, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give somebody in order to change that angle?
Yeah, I think a top tip, right? And here's 3 actually. Here's 3 top tips, and this is an exercise that I often take through new clients or influencers or people that want to build their personal brand. And this is an important starting point for everyone. The first thing that you need to look at is, what are your interests? What are you interested in, and what do you what brings you alive? Like, what are you actually, like, you know, what do you spend time looking into? And this doesn't have to be like, you know, something that you do very well. Write down a whole list of all these things, and it will make sense in a bit. Write down a whole list of all your interests, everything. It could be anything from, like, you know, gaming. It could be like going out on walks. It could be socializing. It could be reading. It could be personal development, history. Could be science, like whatever it is. Like, it doesn't have to be anything like specific and that's well talked about or anything like that. Could be a simple thing like, you know, listening to people and helping people, like something like that. Write down everything. Then you've got knowledge. What have you got knowledge on? So knowledge is something that you've learned through observation and not just through like accreditation, through qualifications. Do you get me? This is something that you've got knowledge on. Some people have got knowledge on, say, trainers. Like, they know what trainers are worth what just by looking. Like, do you get me? Like, some people are experienced in that might be one. Some people are experienced in understanding, you know, FIFA points and FIFA stickers and FIFA players. Like, that's the knowledge, because they know specifically about that within the market. Another knowledge could be, you know, like fashion, beauty, maybe it's like, you know, content creation, like videos, sports, anything that you've got knowledge on. write it all down, as many as you can, and you've got a lot more. The average person has about 6 to 10. That's the often number that I'm seeing. 6 to 10.
They have to say that you're a customer to what you are. So if you're a single parent, you're a customer to that. If you're
exactly,
does that make sense?
Yeah,
so you've
true.
got
it's true.
To look at it like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got passion, right? Passion is something that brings you alive. Now, this is when people only have a few. They normally have, say, 1 to 3, really. Most people, but some people do have more. Like I have a lot more because I'm passionate about quite a bit. And I'm quite active on the personal development side, so there's quite a bit that I'm passionate about. But when you're passionate about something, when you talk about it, your voice starts to raise, you start to get excited, your heart starts beating, and nobody needs to pay you to do this thing that you're passionate about. You do it for free regardless because you love it that much. It could be animals, it could be helping people, it could be actually personal development. That's a passion of mine. I love pushing myself. There's literally loads. Now, after you've wrote all this down and you've got a category, do this as an exercise. You've got a category, then you've got to look at, all right, realistically, how do I monetize all these? How do I make an income from one or some of these? You need to pick some that can potentially overlap. Then what you do, you create a brand to put you out there so you become known for whatever it is that you circle out of these categories. So if it's I don't know, if it's something to do with children's development or something like that, you become known as the person that's talking about this children's development. What can children do at different stages of their life when they're developing? If it's a case where, for an example off the top of my head, if it's a case where children are at that age where they're playing and they're doing imaginary play, what can help them to excel? Start to put that out there. What will tend to happen is people that are interested in those types of topics, they will gravitate towards you. They will start following you. They will start paying attention. And then that's when brands start coming to you and asking you, actually, we will pay you to do a sponsor, or we will pay you to work with us, or to give us advice on a consultation level. Or there's multiple ways. There's so many different ways that you can make an income from that. It's crazy. I mean, you only have to look at that the podcaster Happy Baby Happy Mum, is it something like that? She's won I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. She just started talking about what makes you happy and what makes your baby happy, little tips and advice for mums. Do you get me? And then all of a sudden she's one of the biggest podcasters, making millions. And then plus she's on TV winning I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of It over other people that are considered they consider them proper celebrities, mainstream celebrities. But they're winning because they've got the fan base. And that's what's happening right now. And at this time where everyone's in lockdown, people are consuming more content than ever. Content consumption's up 40%. So
it was the second biggest before that anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of what people consume.
Yeah.
I think the first one was air.
Yeah.
And the second one was content. Yeah,
it's true, it's mad, isn't it, when you think about it? But it is because everyone's looking for that escapism. Everybody's looking for escapism, and escapism, there's no problem with it in small amounts. But if you're escaping things that need to be addressed, then that's when it has a knock-on effect and has problems. And that's often what's happening. A lot of people, they're escaping too much. They're scrolling down on their phone too much. They're spending too much time on things that aren't bringing value into their life, and that's the problem. And I'm guilty of it myself. I've done it at times, and especially during lockdown, I've done it at times.
Everybody's.
Yeah.
I spoke to olders that are on Instagram, and they say, "Hang on a minute, I'm spending hours on this," and before you know it, I was doing nothing.
That's
what I mean?
That's what I mean. That's time lost. Time that you can't get back. Do you get me? So it's kind of that thing where when you recognize it, because I recognized it when it was happening. I was just scrolling a lot and consuming a lot of content. When I recognized that was happening, I was like, you know what? Nah, reset. I've got to come away from this, reset my perspective, reset my habits and all that. And I just did it but I'm like that. I'm very much, not everybody's like that. Some people need someone to hold them accountable. So if that's the case and you need someone to hold you accountable, shout a friend and speak to them and then say, look, I want to do this. How you getting on with this? See how they're doing. They might have a similar problem because a lot of other people do. And then hold each other accountable and say, look, we're going to do these actions at this time. Go out on a walk. Like, obviously, with lockdown, you're not meant to be walking with each other. Just keep your distance. Just keep your distance. As simple as that. Just keep the social distancing. Like, and just do that. Because it's better that than people's mental health starts to deteriorate because the suicide rate that I'm hearing. I mean, I know of about 3 to 4 people that have committed suicide during lockdown.
Really?
Yeah, 3 to 4. And that's people that I know. Like, or I know someone that knows them. Do you get me? Like, so you're kind of connected in a way. And it's, and these are young people like our age. Like, they're not old people and they haven't got no serious, well, when I say serious worries, they haven't got no, you know, something that you would consider, you know, that's suicidal. But often that's the things that do tip people over the edge, isn't it? It's that last.
But here's the problem, you know, brother, I think, because if somebody's a closed individual anyway, and they find it difficult to open up, and then put somebody in a lockdown situation and they become more closed, like, how does someone become open? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because then they're not around the people to build that relationship to open up, and there wasn't an open person anyway.
In the first place. Yeah, so it's going to only get worse, if that makes sense.
It is, and to be honest, I ain't even got an answer for that.
Yeah, no.
That's the hard thing. Like, that's how deep it is. Like, I don't know what they do, and this is the type of people that I worry for the most. Like, because it's like, you know, they don't open up and they're dealing with it inside, but when you see them, they're smiling. And there is certain people, you know, when you ask them how you doing, you're right. And they give you that smile, and it's like, no, you're not, you know. But me and you haven't got that relationship where I can just be like, bro, if you're not telling me the truth.
I'm asking questions regardless. I've purposely made it a mission, even if it's a message. And people might think I'm weird for it because there's people that haven't heard of me for like years. So I might drop them a message and say, how's things, or send them a link to something, or, you know what I mean? And they might think, well, it's weird, I don't know anything. But for me, I'm checking on you to see if you're all right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm exactly the same, but I've had some situations, you know, when like you ask people and it's like the way that they're angry at you for asking because you're bringing up emotions. Do you get me? Like, and I've had that so many times, but I don't know whether it's just me and I've got that relationship with people. Like, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, as you know, like some of our friends, like, they don't come to me for certain stuff because they know I'm going to tell them what they need to hear. So sometimes when I say, like, you know, how you doing, bro? You right? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. You know, this and I said, nah, you're not. You know, something's wrong. Like, what's wrong? Like, and then as soon as I say that and I'm confronting it and I keep on drawing it back and bringing it back, it's like they're getting angry because they don't like to admit that there is something wrong, and they hate the fact that someone on the outside can see it. Do you get me? And then and as soon as they have to ask themselves these types of questions, it's like the frustration kicks in and you're the problem. You're the reason why they feel like this. Do you get me? And that's what I feel with some people.
It's not even you know, but that just happens all the time, and that's just people just kind of putting up this defensive mechanism, so they don't need to talk about the problems in it, really.
And that's because that might be half because I haven't got that relationship with them. But if they're in the habit of not having, like, getting close to people and opening up anyway, then how do they do it?
Bro, honestly, and I'm not trying to say this as being arrogant, but if you're an open person, I think you need to be around those kind of close people because, and ask those difficult questions, and be that person that, you know, that they might start pointing fingers at. Eventually, if someone wants to talk, they're going to talk anyway, ain't they? You know? So I like to be that kind of person where, okay, I might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but in the end, you're dealing with your issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I'm that kind of person, and I don't think I'd ever want to change it. You know what I mean? They might hate me for that short period of time, but I've tried to talk to you about important things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a major key. That is a major key. I think that's how, like, you know, different characters deal with different things. I mean, like, I think you have got a bit more patience than me in certain elements.
You've got more patience than me, definitely.
You reckon? I definitely like me and you have got both, like, similar friends, and even the same friends in some aspects. And you will give someone a bit of, like, benefit of the doubt or a bit more time, whereas I'll be like, you know, I've spoke to him once, like, and they're not listening to the advice, but they're still complaining about the same thing.
Yeah,
After
I
that,
can't.
you're just moaning. Like, if you know the answers and you're not doing it, after that, you just and that's me because I'm not patient like that. Whereas you would take the time and still, like, that's a good quality to have, and I wish I did have that quality. But
Asking you that, she'll probably tell you different, to be honest, because I ain't got the patience. I will listen to you the first couple of times, and that I think I try to be understanding to a certain degree, but the patience thing does run off. I can't. If you're not doing anything to better your situation, then eventually I'll just drop off.
Yeah.
However, I will be the person to initiate certain conversations. You know what I mean?
Makes perfect
and
sense.
I think that's important, to be honest.
It is.
You
So,
know what I mean?
I think we've covered quite a bit.
Just lastly on the business side of things, is that if anybody's listening, interested in starting a business based on your skills or knowledge, definitely look at social enterprise and what that model involves, because you can have certain skills and not qualifications and kind of transfer that into a business idea. So anybody who's listening, definitely check out what a social enterprise is, or community interest company, and see if you can kind of get your head around it and if you can develop anything from that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point, man. Because I mean, lockdown just help creativity. I think. I mean, you've got to think two famous people that actually excelled during a lockdown or a type of lockdown was Isaac Newton. During the plague, he come up with this theory of gravity, and there was something else. I think it was there was two other theories that he come up with. But during the plague, they had like a type of lockdown where everyone stayed in their house, and he went to Lincolnshire, I think it was. And he literally stayed in his house and come up with all these ideas. William Shakespeare, he wrote poems and plays during lockdown at the same time where the plague was going on. Do you get me? Like, so I think sometimes when you're limited and you're told to work with what you've got, that's better. Like, if someone said to me, like, go into a room and create a video just within that room, that's better direction than someone saying create a video.
Definitely.
Like, do you get me? It's that same type of thing. So if you're stuck in your house and you're like, well, what can I create from home that can generate an income using the internet and that I'm passionate about? Do you get me?
It's another quick story, just because I do a little bit of modelling and TV work. So I was on set one time, and this model from Birmingham, big man, is about 39 or something like that. He made clay shell sinks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just for personal, he just liked doing it. In the end, over the lockdown, he started creating them and then putting them to the market. He's now created a business that these sinks are being shipped across the world now. Which he never thought that, imagined that in his wildest life, that this thing that he creates would be like massive. But it's been installed in places like the Dubai hotels, you know what I mean, and these, you know what I mean. So the fact that he's just sat there and did it, I feel like isolation is definitely needed in terms of developing yourself as a person. Obviously, there's a balance there. You can't isolate yourself too much, but definitely isolation is good if you're doing the right things in isolation.
It's true. I mean, another perfect example that just come to mind as you were saying that was Malcolm X. Like, he went into prison as a thug and he was a street robber, everything. And then obviously he sat down in prison, read and developed himself, come out, and he's got a whole different mindset. And he's able to articulate his way in a total different way. He started a movement, did some big things. So you got to think, like, it depends on your perspective with lockdown, doesn't it? And that again comes back to how you view it and what you're doing with your time. But yeah, like I think we've covered quite a bit, and there's more that there's so much you could tap onto this topic. There's so much, and we might even do a number 2 if there is another lockdown. It might be here again. Like, you don't know. It depends on whenever they feel like, stopping the lockdown. And they haven't even really announced it yet. They haven't said when the end is or anything like that. It wasn't like the last one when they says, oh, we're going to end in this day. They said round about half term, February, I think it was, but it isn't guaranteed. It depends on the numbers they were saying. You don't really know. So let's just make the most of it. Have a positive mindset. Hopefully those tips that we mentioned are useful and you can put them into action. We're always available, me and Wesley. If you want to message us, we can answer back your messages and everything like that. So if you've got any ideas that you want to run past us and you think, like, is it a viable idea, or have we got any tips for whatever it is that you want to do, just give us a shout. We're not personal trainers or anything like that, but also we can point you in the direction of personal trainers if you do need them that offer online support. So if you want to build those healthy physical habits, just give us a shout and let us know. And also with the recipes, we know a few chefs as well that will be willing to give you some new recipes if you're bored of the same old food because you haven't been eating out or anything like that. We've got connections for that as well. So yeah.
I think the main thing is just let's talk. Even if you've got a problem, you don't know solutions, just hit us, either us up, and we'll try and pinpoint and help you through that problem. Yeah.
Exactly. Perfect. So thanks for coming on again, Wes.
Nice one for having me, man.
No problem, man. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.
Peace.